What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? 49 coming out, another community shoutcast for the Aspect of Gaming Dota 2 community crackdown. I do apologize for the delay. We have finally reconnected and remade the lobby. So 3xA up against ICLEN in the loser bracket. It's a best of one series, so the loser of this game will be eliminated from the DCC2 and the winner does get to advance onto the next round. We did have a few issues with one of the admins, unfortunately making it in AP and then being completely out of contact range, but we have resolved the situation. So I believe it's 3xA that have first pick. Will be interesting to see what hero decide to let slip through the first banning stage. We have been seeing Lycanthropes slip through, with ICLEN being able to pick up Lycanthrope. Of course, the drawback of the Lycan is, as they're able to find out to that game, because he's such a greedy hero and because he only works when you're able to take fights. If you're not able to take these fights, Lycanthrope essentially becomes dead weight. You can still try to split push, but your team really needs you to come online very early and try to take these towers. So we've got a Death Prophet first ban coming from 3xA. Very surprising considering the fact that Death Prophet is incredibly easy to counter pick in the mid lane. If DP is going to be a mid lane hero, you pick up a hero like a TA or a Viper, and Death Prophet suddenly falls apart. She's a hero that has to get ahead in order to be able to win the game, because you've got a 35-minute window of opportunity before you pass your expiration date. And once you're past those 35 minutes, if you haven't breached high ground, game starts to stagnate for you because you've reached your plateau. You've reached your peak, sorry, so you start to plateau. We've got a Void as well as a Tidehunter ban coming out from ICLEN. And so they have given away the Lycanthrope. They could be using it as a bait to force 3xA to go for that Lycanthrope pickup in order to capitalize on the weaknesses Lycanthrope has in the laning stage. Although ICLEN, they did run Lycanthrope in the mid lane and were fairly successful. It's just the fact that the Death Prophet they ran in that tri lane fell apart. And so 3xA haven't actually casted any games with them. Will be interesting to see how they decide to play this. So the reason why you ban out both the Void is because he gives you the drafting advantage to the opposing drafter. If you pick up the Void, you don't know if it's a 1-position Void or a 3-position Void. 9 times out of 10, gonna be that 3-position offlane Void. But of course, there's always that 10% margin area where you do run him that 1 position. Since Void still is a fantastic hard carry, we've actually got a Tinker first pick coming up from 3xA, despite being on the dire side. And so most likely, if you pick up Tinker on the dire side, you want to put him in a defensive tri lane to ensure that you're able to find as much farm as possible. Because if you run him in the mid lane, not as effective, because you don't have easy access to the Ancients to be able to stack up, and because your Ancients are so close to the enemy, your own offlane, which is, and since the offlane tower is usually the first tower to fall, makes it a lot more risky for you to try and find a recovery farm. I've got Invoker and Shadow Shaman first pick coming from ICLEN. So Invoker, we have been seeing Invoker in the mid lane. In competitive games, such as for instance in TI, a lot of teams like IG, they like to run Invoker as a safe lane carry when you go across Exalt, because Invoker is an incredibly greedy hero. Like Tinker, you have to find gold and you have to find experience, and Invoker does okay against Tinker if he goes for the cross Exalt build, because he can contest him for CS, he's got enough base damage to be able to deny Tinker a fair amount of gold, and with the cross sustain, it's difficult to bully him out of lane. With that being said, Tinker could decide to hold on to his skill point for the laser, keep level 1 laser, use it to spam it out to be able to blind Invoker every time he goes in for a last hit. It's the way Tinker wins that mid lane, and choose to go for a fairly standard build. Most likely going to be 2 points in laser, then max out that March. It's the most conventional build, especially if you're playing from the die side, because it gives you that farming recovery option with that March of the Machines once the Solar Ring comes online with the rearm. But of course, some teams do like to run Tinker in a very aggressive way, so that's the advantage of the Tinker in that drafting sense as well. Is if they pick up a hero like Elder Titan, you could BOT to the Ancestral Spirit. If you pick up a Beastmaster, you could BOT into the Hawk. And so that gives you a lot of flexibility if you go for a very aggressive early game build, especially since teams are so used to dealing with a farming Tinker who goes for the maxed out March, that the ganking Tinker can take them by surprise, especially in the mid lane. Since if you're expecting them to have all these points in March and they suddenly throw in a missile, you can miscalculate, that could give you a free kill. And so Doombringer being banned out, because he's such a powerful offlane hero, and the amount of versatility he brings, his sole job is to doom their priority target. So in this case, if Doom is picked up, all he has to do is doom the Invoker, and they're able to win every fight. Invoker Doom does absolutely nothing, especially since he's the one that's going to be absorbing the vast majority of golden experience, and vice versa for the Radiant side. If ICLEN pick up the Doom, all he has to do is Doom Tinker, and you've won that engagement. Assuming the rest of your team don't dope and do an arrow or something like that. Centaur Warrior being banned out, so we've got 4 offlane heroes being banned out by 3xA as well as ICLEN. And so the rationale behind it is the offlane, it's usually the most important lane, especially if the mid and the tri lane are even, or if you're deciding to dodge tri lane, so if you're going for a safe lane tri lane for both of them. And as the offlaner left alone, the dire offlaner has a much more difficult time, since he doesn't have access to the hard count that you can pull through on the Radiant offlane. Much easier to zone out the dire offlaner, and he doesn't have that potential comeback recovery. Since Doombringer, if he's on the Radiant offlane, if you are able to zone him out of lane, he can actually rotate into your jungle, pick up a useful creep, such as the Satyr Hellcaller to give him the sustainability, the Kobold, the Hill Troll healer, so you can give yourself that mana regen as well as that sustain. And they've got a Brewmaster ban, so Brewmaster, fantastic hero to synergize with that Tinker, because Brewmaster wins you fights for the first 35 minutes. And Tinker, the later the game goes, he's able to do, and he's the best late game hero in the game, because A, he could drag the game out to late game. It's almost impossible to push high ground against the March. And if the game does go late enough, he functions exceptionally well as a carry hero, because if he goes for the damage build, so the shotgun with the E-Blade Dagon, he's going to out-DPS every other carry hero you could get at that point, because you can immediately start a fight 4v5. Once the Dagon comes online, Shadow Shaman's going to die immediately at the start of the fight. It's the intrinsic weakness of the Shadow Shaman, is while he's a very powerful hero if you're ahead, he can actually do a huge amount of work, just because if you're able to get a very early Blink Dagger and very early Arcane Boots, he can set up kills, he can split push with when the mass open ones are up, and he can win you these engagements decisively, just for the sheer amount of damage they're able to output. But if you're playing from behind against a hero like a Tinker that can instantly kill him, things are going to be looking very difficult. So ICLEN, they're going for a very greedy support duo, the Shadow Shaman as well as the Skywrath Mage. Just the support duo that the team NV were able to use very successfully against them. It works very well when you're ahead, but the instant you start to fall behind, it becomes a little bit difficult. Because the Shadow Shaman needs so much golden experience to really become effective. And the Skywrath Mage, while he is incredibly powerful at all stages of the game, against a hero like a Tinker that can instantly shotgun him, it's going to be incredibly difficult. So 3xA actually opted for Rubick and AA. Not really the best support duo, because when you pick up an AA, he doesn't really give you lockdown. Similar to a Witch Doctor, you cannot consider Cold Feet to be a reliable stun unless you have some kind of setup. In this case, they've got the setup of the Tetanic left, but of course the drawback to that is AA, the vast majority of times he's picked up, 7 times out of 10 you want to go for that maxed out Chilling Touch. 2 times out of 10 you go for the maxed out Ice Vortex if you're playing really far from behind, and once in a blue moon you see the maxed out Cold Feet build. And so AA, instead of providing the damage, because he provides an obscene amount of damage and teamfight capability, but he lacks the guaranteed lockdown. And Rubick makes up for this with the lift, so Rubick provides a lot of lockdown and control, but he lacks a lot of damage, so the two complement each other well. But the only drawback to this is because Rubick's a slow hero, and because Telekinetic left has a 600 cast range, he's going to be the one that has to initiate. So AA could help out with the Ice Vortex, but if you're trying to pick off a hero like a Windrunner, who can immediately pop Windrun and get the hell out of dodge the instant she sees you rotating with the safety wall, it's going to be difficult to be able to pick them all. So ICLEN, they could go for the greedier offlaner with the Windranger. Windranger, you could also run her in the mid lane. She's actually incredibly powerful in that mid lane, but with the Invoker pickup, most likely going to be seeing Invoker mid, as one of their players, Carl, I believe, he's got several hundred games played on the Invoker. He'll play against him in ranked MMR all the time, and every single time he's either playing the Ember or the Invoker. We got the Timbersaw pickup coming out from a 3xA. Timbersaw does okay against the Windrunner, since with the Welling Death, you're guaranteed to be the final CS, and once level 6 comes online, Windrunner has to be incredibly careful just because you're such a fragile hero. Timbersaw can top her very easily if he does catch her out of position, and Timbersaw, he's a very greedy offlane hero as well, like the Windranger. He's going to be having a much more difficult time against this support matchup, because at level 1, if he goes for Chain at 1, he's going to get completely zoned out of experience. If he goes for Reactive Armor or Welling Death at 1, he's dead. Skywrath Mage starts with a concussive shot, Shadow Shaman with boots, runs up, catches him with a shackle, and then their safe lane farmer just beats on them. So we've got a Lycanthrope ban now coming out from ICLEN, and so they really don't want to risk with the potential Lycanthrope pickup, especially with the Tinker, to be able to drag the game out for as long as possible. Since if you lose a single team fight against the team with a Lycanthrope, you could potentially lose a set of racks. We've got a Phantom Assassin ban coming out from ICLEN. Phantom Assassin works very well with the Rubick as well as the AA, because the Stifling Dagger helps set up the Cold Feet, and you've got the damage potential coming out from the PA. So when you pick up a support duo like a Rubick and an AA, where you have a lot of lockdown and not so much damage unless you've got another ranged hero to synergize with it, you want to pick up somebody like a Weevil, you want to pick up somebody like a Luna to play very aggressively. They've picked up a Lone Druid, so Lone Druid potentially could be the mid lane farmer or the tri lane or the off lane. Lone Druid does give you a lot of flexibility. With the Invoker pickup, most likely going to be what looks like a tri lane Lone Druid, with Invoker mid and Windranger in the off lane. Could also potentially run Windranger in the mid lane. She's a very powerful mid, especially against heroes like the Tinker, since she's got such a high base damage point at level 1. I think it's 50 to 61 damage without any stat items, just off the top of my head. And I think she's got a great cast point as well for attack animations, 0.2, so she's able to out CS the Tinker quite handily. With a Weaver pickup, as the Shadow Shaman and Skywrath Mage, they're both very fragile heroes, and once the Lincoln spec comes online, they can't really do anything to try to control the Weaver, especially when you're constantly Sakuching in and out. But of course, that being said, until that Lincoln spec comes online, Skywrath Mage destroys the Weaver. He might actually even opt to max out the Ancient Seal, especially since he's dealing with a Timbersaw, a Tinker, and a Weaver. So the max Ancient Seal build does a huge amount of work against particular matchups. So when you're dealing with a hero, for instance, like a Brewmaster or a Tidehunter, you could use them. You go for the max Ancient Seal build to be able to neuter their effectiveness in these early team fights. You're going to choose the players from both teams. Over on 3xA, they're going to be seeing Cardi. Looks like a mid lane Tinker, so they are deciding to go for Tinker in the mid lane. Despite being on the dire side, Tinker can work very well in the mid lane. He still is a very powerful hero, even on the dire side. It's just you never want to take any chances with the Tinker. You want to make sure he's guaranteed to get that early Boots of Travels and early Blink Dagger. Because like a one-position Nagasarian, if he gets shut down, if you're able to really prevent him from being able to find his critical items early on, he tapers off very quickly, because he's taking farm from the rest of your team, and the rest of your team is dependent on him to be able to carry them through these fights. Chewbacca going to be over on the Weaver, running into the safe lane. Different, going to be the 5-position Rubick, with the 4-position AA, already starting with Cold Feet, not Cold Feet, Chilling Touch. Chilling Touch works fantastically with the Weaver, because you're guaranteed to get all 3 shots in with that Sakuchi as well as with the Gemini attack, although Gemini attack doesn't proc Chilling Touch. We've got Spartacus rotating over to the bottom lane, Timber Chain up at 1 on the Timbersaw. You usually want to hold on to your skill point to see what you're up against in case you're in a 1v1 offlane situation, in which case the Willing Death will be able to do a lot more work. We've got Wind Ranger, played by Turtle, rotating to the top lane, Safety Ward up as well as Boots, so taking no chances. Carl running to the mid lane like his namesake, going to be the Invoker. Being pulled 2 tankers and starting with a lot of stats, hasn't skilled a regen yet, so could potentially go for Quas Wax. Would give him a lot of teamfight potential, especially with the Skywrath Mage and the Shadow Shaman. So Top Xeno going to be the 4 position Shadow Shaman, and Suck on D is going to be the 5 position Skywrath Mage. The Skywrath and the Shadow Shaman are interchangeable. You can have either one as the 4, but usually you see the Shadow Shaman as the 4 because he needs the Arcane Boots and the Blink Dagger a lot more than the Skywrath Mage needs his Orb of Alley. Rod of Alley and Untamed, usually the offlane player, going to be the lone Druid, starting with the Calling Blade as well as a Stout Shot on the bear to ensure that he can get as much CS as possible. The advantage of the lone Druid, especially against the Tinker, is if he does go for, until the Blink Dagger comes online, you just run at him with the bear. You could slow siege down these towers. Lone Druid's one of the few heroes that can immediately fight the instant he picks up a Radiance. Other Radiance carriers like the Nagasaran or the Phantom Assassin, if you do go for a Radiance, you're going to be farming and split pushing. But with the lone Druid, because your bear is so damn beefy, you can just run at them and create these team fights. Spartacus, actually, gotta be very careful. Top Xeno's got Shackles waiting in the wings, he reveals himself now. Timber Chain flies out, he shackles him to be able to prevent that Timber Chain. Great recognition coming from Top Xeno. That's first blood, just at the back of the supports. This is the power of the Skywrath Mage. It's the reason why he's picked or banned in almost every single game. No other support hero offers you that much damage at level 1. And so he's able to completely destroy the Timbersaw, and good recognition coming from Top Xeno, waiting until the Timber Chain flew up before shackling him to ensure that if they happened to miscalculate and didn't get enough damage to be able to finish him, he wouldn't be able to chain out. And so great recognition coming up from him, holding on for as long as possible. He even threw a right click before shackling, so a lot of efficiency coming up from him. And Carl in the mid lane, actually dominating Cardi. It looks like over in the top lane, Wind Ranger actually got a kill over Indifferent, so this is something that is completely unexpected. You don't expect a Wind Runner solo against a Troy lane to be able to get a kill like that, but because Poem was stacking and pulling, left the Rubick alone, and Wind Ranger, similar to a Clockwork Goblin, able to capitalize very well when the support hero is left on their own. Since with that power shot, you're guaranteed to get that kill shot in. Spartacus now has to be playing very carefully, and this is the intrinsic weakness of the Timbersaw. 1v1, he is absolutely fantastic. With the Whirling Death and with the reactive armor, it's difficult to kill him, it's difficult to bully him out of the lane, and he's guaranteed to at least break even. Carl, taking all these shots from Carl, he doesn't give a single fuck, because he's got the Quas regen. Turns around with the Cold Snap, and with that range creep hitting him as well, Carl's actually able to trade a lot more effectively than Cardi. Cardi, 2 points up on the laser though, is able to force him back. It looks like he's going for a much more active early game Tinker build. And Carl, he isn't aware that he's got a point in the missile, so he could actually potentially turn that into a kill. Because that's the advantage of Tinker's always going for the laser into March build. No one ever expects the missile, so you could use that to go for a very early first blood, or in this case go for a retaliatory kill. Concussive Chop flies over in Cardi. Wind Runner has rotated, Sunstrike flies, unfortunately not going to latch, but with that cold feet, and with Wind Runner being able to dive with the Wind Run, should be enough to bring him down. And the Alpoop, there we go. Turtle does clean it up. The advantage of Wind Ranger is with that Wind Run, you can play incredibly aggressive. You could dive towers, back into the one. Vigos, who was an assist player, used to be famous for just playing hyper aggressive on that Wind Ranger. He's the only player I know that plays more aggressively when his team's playing from behind, because he's able to make these incredible plays by diving towers, not giving a single damn. Spartacus has to be very careful. Top Xeno can choose to initiate with the shackle, especially now that the Skywrath Mage is rotating in. He could be going on right now, throwing out a few cheeky right clicks. Concussive Chop flies as well as the shackle. Sunstrike's landing on top of him. He might be able to get the Timber Chain open though. Skywrath Mage says no to that. Suck on these, smacks him down, and already ICLEN are looking very strong. Looks like we've got support rotating over into the mid lane, so Carl, left alone against Cardi, is doing incredibly well for himself. So they have to try to shut him down. They're jelly of his gains. They're going to try to take him away from him, because if you're not able to contain the Invoker, especially if he gets a very early hand of Midas, because he's Quas Exile, he's just going to sit in that mid lane. And so Tinker, he's never going to have a moment of peace. And since he's on the dire side, it's much harder for him to be able to capitalize on stacking out the Ancient to be able to recover that way. Poem and Different. The smoke does break. Carl gets without the laser whilst missile. Cold Feet procs, and he should be taking forward that Telekinetic lift. Nothing he can do. He does trade a few right clicks over on Cardi to at least stab back at him and try to make him burn through his regen. Forge Spirit micro coming out, so actually doing a fair amount of damage over him. Cardi has to be fairly careful over the bottom lane. Looks like Timbersaw once again takes one untamed, unfortunately. He dies to the Dire Tower, and we've got Suck on D's pinging him out, as well as Carl saying, "What the hell are you doing? Why didn't you shift aggro for me, you noob?" Top Xeno, level 3, gonna be hitting level 4 very shortly, and Timbersaw, he's level 2. He's being out-leveled by the supports. That's the state of the game. Now it's very difficult for Timbersaw to recover, because unlike a Tidehunter, he can't stack and clear out the Ancients. Unlike a Batrider or a Darkseer, he can't go into the jungle. You can, I suppose, in theory, but it's going to be so slow, it's not really going to be worthwhile. Cardi getting out-microed by Carl. He's using the Force Spirit just to poke at him, throws out the Cold Snap, to do a little bit of damage. If that was the unchanged Cold Snap, so it does 30 damage per proc, actually could have gone for a kill attempt there, but because Cold Snap only does 7 damage times your level of Quas, no longer as effective as it used to be. It's why you see Invoker in that safe lane, is because he no longer has as much lane control as he used to. But that being said, Carl, very experienced Invoker player. and he's bullying Cardi quite handily. Cardi opting for a point over in the March, and so this is a much more flexible Tinker build. You go for this build when you know that they could be rotating on you, when you know you're not having a fantastic start. Because with the 2 points in lasers and the 2 points in March, you could potentially rotate if they try to and go in for kills if they dive towers. If they try to gank you and TP support comes in, you can provide a fair amount of damage. Of course, the 2 supports rotating in, Suck on D's as well, Top Xeno. Waiting the wings, Bottle is actually down. They could go to snipe off the Bottle right now. Courier does fly through, so they're going in for the Courier. Unfortunately, it does reveal the support rotating, and they should be able to bring it down. There's no haste available. There we go. Suck on D's goes over in Cardi. If he had Mystic Flare, that'd be a free kill. Top Xeno running in. March is flying through though, and Top Xeno actually could be taking a force to tank out the tower. Ether Shock flies whilst the laser. Top Xeno actually should be dying to the tower there. Pops the cell, but unfortunately it's in vain. Different does get knocked down by Carl solo against the 2 supports. Poem throwing out a few more right clicks for Carl. He doesn't give it single damage. He's got a double damage, which pops the Sunstrike. Starts smacking him. And yeah, unfortunately missed micro that Force Spirit there. If you threw out one more right click of that Force Spirit, would have been enough. But with that threat of the Sunstrike, AA is forced off. And Spartacus now left alone against the Lone Druid. Lone Druid, I think he's level 5 now. Yeah, so he's got the entangling roots available. And while I say that, I look away from Total for 1 second. He finds another kill over on the safe lane Weaver. And so 3xA, things are looking very grim for them. They're dependent on at least one of their lanes winning. If the Weaver wins his lanes able to find very early Lincoln Sphere, and then he can start creating space by going on their supports and placing a lot of pressure. If the Tinker's able to win the mid lane, he could drag out the rest of the game. But that being said, it's early days yet. Tinker still does give you that incredible sieging potential, since it makes it damn near impossible to breach high ground unless you're able to catch him outside the base, or if you've got a hero like a Clockwork that can initiate onto him. But even then, as we saw with, I believe it was KTH up against Horseman the Ruckus, the Tinker player opted for a 4-star to ensure that if he got hookshot cogged, he could just 4-star himself out, turn around, laugh at the Clockwork and not lasering him in the face. We've got Top Xeno and Turtle hiding there, but they are being pinged out, as there's a very aggressive ward being placed there, so it looks like they did de-ward Turtle's safety ward. Never mind, the safety ward's over there, so unconventional safety ward placement coming up from Turtle to ensure that it didn't get de-warded. He's going to max out that Shackle, so opting not to go for that value point over in the ultimate. You do see the value point over the ultimate. He does like the Great Shackle over a Different. Different could be taken 4 right now. Top Xeno's there with the Shackle. Throws at the Ether Shock, unfortunately gets thrown back. So he wanted the Ether Shock to provide that damage. There we go. Now with that Shackle, it's going to be taking a fall. Sunstrike flies just in case, but Top Xeno should be the retaliatory kill, as Chewbacca cleans him up. Concussive Shot flies whilst the Ancient Tail over in Poem. Poem's being smacked down by the Alpha coming up from Suck on D's. Turtle. He's using the Bullet Charge to keep himself alive for as long as possible. Cardi, he doesn't have a rearm, he doesn't have the laser or missile off cooldown, so Turtle's just able to walk himself out and out there. Good recognition. Using the bottle during ticks of the attack to ensure that he gets some kind of regen up to keep himself alive. And while that's happening, Carl, 6-minute hand of Midas up on him. Invoker's very quickly reaching the point where you can't really control him. Looks like we've got a long ult chest. Spartacus caught out with the Entangling Claws. He is able to Timber Chain himself out to safety, so he should be able to make himself on out of there. But Untamed, 2.5k up on him. He's going to be finding it what looks like a 14-minute Radiance at the rate that he's farming. That's without the tower. With a tower, could even be finding it in the 12 to 13 minute mark. So being able to do absolutely nothing against them. It's the greed coming up from 3xA. You usually don't want to pick up a Timbersaw unless you're going to clash try, so it's offlane the offlane. Cardi is Concussive Draw as well as the Ancient Seal. Carl should be able to smack another few more right clicks. No Cold Snap even needed. Sunstrike flies instead. Alpu flying into to clean him up, but Carl's able to take it with the Forward Spirit. And so the Tinker pickup, if you pick up Tinker on the Dire side, this is why you put him in the tri-lane, to ensure that he's able to find his farm. Because he's so exposed over the Dire offlane, he doesn't have access to the Ancients, because the tier 1 over in the bottom lane will be taking fall very early on, so it deprives him a lot more map control. Whereas over on the Radiant side, because you can place, that's a fairly common ward placement, it provides you a lot of defensive coverage, and because you have easy access to the Ancients, so when you go top, you can always stack it, or have it support stack it for you, you're guaranteed to be able to find your Boots of Travels in the first 10 to 14 minutes at the absolute latest, because you've got that recovery mechanic. Unless they're able to steal your Ancients or contest them, which you could defend quite well, just because Tinker's great at defending his Ancient stack by throwing out the March. He's doing the exact same thing he does when he's farming, is also able to defend. Untamed has to be a bit careful, as Different is rotated down. Unfortunately, we don't have the Chakram coming up online for Spartacus. So the Spartacus, he tried to revolt, but the Romans are crucifying him, and the Bear with the Entanglement Claw is doing a lot of work against him. Top Xeno, as well as Suck on D's. A lot of props goes to them for being able to shut down the Timbersaw so effectively. But Top Xeno, the next level plays coming up for him, waiting until he threw out the Shackle before he called him out with the... he waited until he threw out the Timber Chain before throwing out the Shackle. Turtle throws out Power Shot, actually takes out a good chunk of Chewbacca's life. So Chewbacca, there's no Han Solo to bail you out of this one. Turtle's going to continue to poke you with the Power Shot. And Cardi in the mid lane, they need to rotate supports or have supports ready to rotate. Because ICLEN, they're just going to stomp all over the Tinker. And once again, Chewbacca takes a fall to Wind Ranger. Poem as well goes forward, but he's actually out of mana. Wind Ranger can turn on this. And Cardi caught up with a Cold Snap, Sunstrike, one more right click, and Carl absolutely rolling all over him. So Carl in the mid lane, level 9 compared to the level 7 Tinker, so 2 level advantage. Actually might be able to take this tower down. Shadow Shaman, Top Xeno is able to take that, and he actually took down Tattoo as well using the Mass Serpent Wards. And so things are starting to ball out of control for ICLEN. because they're reaching the point of critical mass of their heroes. You've got the Radiance coming online for Lone Druid very shortly. Actually, I believe he's got the Sacred Relic up right now. Rotating over to the mid lane. This is the advantage of the Lone Druid, is he's a very timing specific hero. When you pick up the Radiance, you've got about 10-15 minutes where they can't really do anything to deal with the bear. Once you pass the 35-minute mark, like the Brewmaster, like the Death Prophet, they have enough damage that they can actually turn and kill the bear before the bear becomes a relevant threat. But if you're able to find Radiance, especially at the speed that he's getting, he'll be looking like something like a 11-minute Radiance. There's nothing they could do. You run at different cries, hugs himself, and holds onto his ankles. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Looks like the missile as well as the laser span coming out. March is being used to try to provide some defensive fire, but there's 4 heroes rotating, and while it's happening, Turtle continuing to poke and bully Chewbacca. Chewbacca can't do anything against this Wind Ranger, because if he goes in for a lot of harassment with the Sakuchi with the Gemini attack, just pops the Wind Run, shackles him, and then just kills him. And so Chewbacca has to play very passively. When you play passively against a Wind Ranger, she still pokes you with the power shots. It's very difficult to deal with. No boots up on him. This is the biggest issue with the Rubick. It's the reason why you don't see him picked up unless it's picked up as a counter pick to certain heroes such as the Titan Hunter or the Enigma. Spartacus, he's going to have swords raining down from the heavens up and down on him. Different Turno Chicken, then hexed up, and then shackled up should be taken full. Cardi stands ground with the laser, but one more outboot coming out from Cyclone D's, enough to bring him down. I believe the Lone Druid Bear actually took the last hit for that, so that's a Radiance now available 11 minutes into the game. Turtle left alone against Weaver, so Windrunner, a very greedy offlane hero like the Timbersaw, but in a 1v1 matchup, she excels. She has such a huge base damage. Well, actually, could go for a kill and chill Chewbacca right now. Shackle land, power shot, a few more right clicks. Doesn't have enough mana speed to use time. Like, actually, a Sakuchi sits there for a while. So, not really too sure what's happening over for 3XA. They are starting to fall apart at the seams. Untamed, there we get that last hit. So, Radiance now available, and with no boots up on the Rubick. Poem, he does have boots, but he can't do anything against the bear as well. They're pinging out Roshan. So when you're ahead, continue to build that lead. We've got about 15,000 gold lead in favor of 3x, in favor of ICLEN, sorry, and about 10,000 experience lead. It's going to be about 16,000 gold, especially with the Aegis the Immortal going into their hands, the Roshan kill as well. Looks like Windrunner going towards the Orc and the Malevolent, so fairly standard build for the current meta Windrunner. You used to go for something like a 4-star into a mech or phase mech, but nowadays you want to go for a very early Orc and Malevolent because it turns you into a ghetto cleanse. You've got the attack speed buff coming in from the focus fire. We've actually got GG called 12 minutes into the game. And to 3XA, they've had enough. Looks like they will be stepping out of the APoG aspect of gaming Dota 2 community crackdown. And despite a bit of an initial delay in getting the game started, that will be it for now. We'll be quickly checking to see if there are any other games happening for this next round to see if I can cast a few more games. Otherwise, I'll be taking a break until the next round. So ICLEN will be playing the winners of the loser bracket. Not too sure what the other two teams are. I'll just quickly check that now. So going to be taking a quick break. We'll be right back.